welcome to the Big Apple School podcast, the weekly English show where we speak about everything under the sun. The major goal of the show is to help you improve your English and, of course, learn something new. My name's Katja, I'm your host, and today with me...
I'm Гэри.
I'm Alyona.
And Barbarara.
Guys, as usual, I'm going to say that we here at Big Apple School are doing our best to be as useful to you as possible. And we are doing it through our podcast and through our website and, all the social media. And we really want to get some of your feedback about it. So you can subscribe to our pages on Apple, Yandex, Google, VK, or any other platform where you listen to our podcast. And let us know what you think about our show. Rate and review our podcast, give stars, leave some comments, ask questions. You can ask questions to Гэri specifically, to make him join VK. And you can even send your ideas about our next episodes. It won't take much time or effort, but it will help us a lot to become even better and make it to the top 3 of educational podcasts on VK. We're now pretty close to being in the top 5. So come on, help us on this one. Is it my vanity kicking in? No, it's not. So, how's it going? How do you enjoy the lovely fall weather?
I love the wind. It blows my hair. I like it.
Well, if I had hair, I would love the wind too, but it's only a fond memory of hair. That is, wind I can still experience. Yes, very directly.
Do you feel sad about the summer being over?
No, never. I love autumn pretty much.
What for?
I don't know, the colors, I think. The colors, the wind again.
Oh, you mean the gray and the gray?
No, they are so bright and beautiful. Last weekend, my family and I, we went to the village where my grandma grew up, and we went to the forest. Guys, it was so beautiful. It is. It sounds so beautifully because there are no insects almost, and just everything is bright because of the autumn. Yeah. Green, red, brown, and other colors.
Where did you go?
Yeah,
because I'm walking here in Novosibirsk, and all I see is gray and puddles and mud.
It's too early.
It's just halfway to Barnaul, right?
Okay,
wow.
so this is how. Ew, south, Гэri. What was it?
No. I mean, just it's south. It should, the geography of it.
Oh well.
Do I have to explain? No, in the north, I would think it would be changing faster, right? Because it's getting colder. Right?
But I think
or is it in the mountains? Is it high?
It's the region is highlands and the lowlands altogether. So in the lowlands there are pretty many bushes with different berries and so on. So they look really beautifully. So because of that, when you see the colors in the forest, for example, the pine trees and altogether the birches and so on, so they are different. And if you look down into the lowlands...
the shrubs change.
But I guess you have to go somewhere,
other than Novosibirsk.
Yeah, to enjoy this. I have to be honest, while living in Novosibirsk and in Yakutsk, I never understood, the beauty of the fall. You know how you read Russian poetry and it's all about the fall and beautiful colors and the gold of it. And I was reading and thought, wait, what are you talking about? This is not what fall looks like. And then I went to Moscow in October once. Oh, and I understood what they were talking about. It was just so beautiful in the parks. And then I went to Massachusetts and I saw all the foliage.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Oh my goodness. I fell in love with the fall. Not in Siberia. Yeah, but yeah.
It does it here too. It's a short time, right?
And you have to go somewhere, that has trees, I guess.
Well, yes, you do. That's yeah.
We have a tradition, and we go to the village in the beginning of September. So just to enjoy the views, to maybe pick up mushrooms. This time there were no mushrooms at all. But
seriously, I've seen all the pictures.
I don't know where.
Of my friends and people I know, and on social media, people just picking up so much.
No, we weren't that lucky. So we found a few big mushrooms, I think. That's all. Just,
all right.
I don't know. I have fingers of 2 my hands to count how many mushrooms we found. That's all.
Okay. So what do you usually do in the fall? I mean, do you have any plans? Are you getting ready for the winter? So what is your typical fall?
I don't know. Enjoy the weather if it is good. Yeah. If it's not that windy as it is today, I woke up actually at 6 o'clock in the morning because of the wind. Yeah. I can't say I don't enjoy it, but it's too strong, to my taste.
Barbara, Gary, thoughts on the fall?
Oh, October in the South, in the United States, is my favorite because we do have the turning leaves. We didn't have that in California, so I didn't know, just like you, I did not know what that meant. But in the South, we have that. I love October. And then it's the start of our holidays, Halloween.
Do you ever miss it?
Miss the fall?
In the South?
In the South. Oh, I miss the summers in the South because of the smells and the katydid.
And the what?
Katydids. The grasshoppers, the crickets.
Oh, okay.
Katydids.
Yeah. Bugs. Insects. Right, yes.
Creatures.
The South is great for bugs.
Oh, no, they sing. They rub their legs together, I guess, and they
there's a
chirp
sound.
somehow,
There's
and
a
they're
sound.
so beautiful. I love
Is
it.
that when they do it like, you do it like that? Like, what are you planning, insect? Like, what kind of a evil plan do you have?
Yeah, I don't know how they make the noise. I'll have to Google it. I don't know if they
Right. Yes.
That's how we find information these
that's
days.
correct.
Yeah. All righty. And Gary?
Well, what was the question? The fall.
Yeah.
Well, as long as the weather is good, at least there'll be a couple more days. I mean, my thing is I go to Academ Garadok, and the leaves will be turning later there. And it's very nice, very beautiful.
Okay.
Very beautiful, even if they don't turn, because it's just always beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. All right. And we are here today to talk about ourselves. Well, no, we're here to talk about personality and character traits and everything. But, well, I want to ask you first, how would you describe yourself? So how would you describe your personality?
I have two personalities.
You and your evil alter ego?
Yeah. I think,
Okay.
actually, I didn't know that this podcast was about personalities. Somehow I get my podcasts mixed up. So this is a pleasant surprise, I guess.
Okay. Barbara enjoys being surprised by things.
I love the surprises. But don't we have a personality that we share with other people when we're among other creatures? And then we have a certain personality when we're by ourselves, a little deeper in deeper thought. Aren't we like that?
That is a good point. I would even say that, sometimes we have even more personalities than, depending on who we are around.
Yes,
Depending
that's true.
Depending on your particular problem conditions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Unless that's a part of your personality that you're not honest.
Of course I'm going to be honest.
And it's for us to decide.
Well, then I won't be honest. I'll make a point of not being honest.
But we still have some certain personality traits that are unchangeable, that are always there with us no matter who we are around. So, and how would you describe this? Who are you?
Well, I am very serious. And I think because I'm very serious, I really exude, I think, bubbliness and when I'm around people. But really, truly, my deep downs, I'm very serious.
How does that show? I mean...
By, I think, being by myself and, I guess, self-examining maybe the past, what the future is, who I am, my thoughts about things. And to me, life is serious, but we're not supposed to be serious. We're supposed to enjoy it. But for me, it seems to be very serious.
Does that mean that being serious, you're also very responsible, reliable, a person like that?
I am. And I think I have a lot of integrity. I will really... I might lie to you on certain things, but for the most part, my character trait is great integrity. I feel that that's really important for me.
Okay.
And I would say that I have integrity.
Barbara, you used to be a ballet teacher. Well, you still are, right?
I don't teach ballet, but I still do a few exercises, and it's a part of me. And that is a very serious, you have to be serious in class, and especially with teachers that are very strict and things have to very critical. I would say that it's a very critical, cruel world, and I think that's how.
And I wanted to ask you because of that. Have you ever been very bossy and
Yes,
very?
I've been very bossy. Yes, and I've been told not to be bossy. But you know what I do? We women tend to be a little bit more timid because we're told that we're a certain way if we're aggressive or what's the word? Assertive. And so I would study men ballet teachers and I would listen to what they're saying to students. I thought, okay, let me try that. And so I would act like a male teacher and I couldn't get away with half the things, anything that they would say. So it's, I have to control my bossiness because I like things my way. And
I'm sorry, it's not really on the topic, but I always wanted to ask you about your thoughts on Russian School of Ballet. Because if you ever see videos or if you ever attend a ballet class in Russia, oh my God, the aggression you get from teachers there is unbelievable. So, they would say something like, oh, I thought I was teaching ballet to girls and not to hippopotamuses, something like that. Or
like that.
You're not even a person, you're not a human being until you learn how to do this properly. So, and these are just the kindest things you can hear in a class,
Yeah, and it's not just in Russia. I mean, it's all over. It is definitely a cruel world.
So it is a part of
being
definitely.
in ballet. Yeah, so you have to be thick-skinned and tough. Yeah.
All right. Oh, wow. So we can add that then to your list of character traits. You're thick-skinned.
Thick-skinned.
Like, you're trying to insult me? I was in ballet for so many years. You can't insult me. Okay. Alyona, Гэри, how would you describe yourself?
I don't know. Being serious, it is part of my life as well, but because I'm the eldest child in the family. And
does that mean that you're also very responsible then again?
No.
You're the eldest child in the family. I would expect you to.
What kind of family is this?
Yeah. So I think half responsible, but serious, yes. It was really funny even being flirty with a guy. Yeah. So talking about something, and I'm really straight. I see that the conversation's going well and everything is fine. So we are really in a friendly mood. So, and then somebody tells me, like my sister or somebody, like, he was flirting to you. And I was, really? Really? That was flirt? So really serious. And sometimes I even can't control it. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah,
uncontrollably serious.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can't notice that trait sometimes being on. Yeah. And the other thing is, I think it's kind of head in the clouds. Yeah. Being a little dreamy.
This is a very interesting combination.
It is.
Yeah.
So, as Barbara said, we, I think, have plenty personalities. Yeah. So depending on what the situation is or who we're communicating with, yeah. And I don't think it's hypocritical even, yeah. So it's just the way the human being reacts to the situation, and so how we feel as comfortable or we feel in definite situations and with the people. We interact. So, yeah, head in the clouds.
So
being
serious,
dreamy
at the same time. So head in the clouds. How else would you describe yourself?
I don't know. I'm most part of my life, I think I'm a true introvert. Yeah. Yeah. Even being an English teacher, so it's supposed to be like profession. Well, the person must be a little more open, to people, to the situations and so on. But when you come home, you just lie down, you just stay there for, I don't know, an hour on your sofa, not talking to anybody, maybe patting a cat.
Well, people tend to only differentiate extroverts and introverts, but we tend to forget about ambiverts. So do you know who ambiverts are?
Endover.
Ambi. So AMBI.
Oh,
So they're
ambiverts.
both a little bit of both.
Exactly. So ambiverts, they are people who have a tendency to be a rather extrovert. They enjoy talking to people. They enjoy socializing. But at the same time, they need quite a long time to, recover from all that socializing after that. So they enjoy socializing, but at the same time, they enjoy being alone and they enjoy time with themselves. So, and that means that very often before they go out or something, which they enjoy, they might need some time, to recharge, to just be in a quiet space, not, touch and not talk to. So these are ambiverts.
That would define me better, I think. Yeah. So being sociable, yes, but for just some part of my life, for some part of the day. But then I need some time for myself because it's really so resourceful, I think, being an open person, being an introvert, socializing.
It takes energy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Draining. It's draining.
Yeah, very often. Well, it also depends on who you're with, of course. Sometimes we have to deal with people who are just, those people who are like energy vampires. You spend some time with them and then you're just emotionally drained. You're exhausted, which is unbelievable. Like, I just spent an hour with you. Why am I feeling so bad? Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Okay, Gary.
Yes.
Don't be humble.
Well, I would fall into. I think if you say you're an introvert, that's not a great thing to say. I think it's fine. I think it's true.
Why?
I think I am. Well,
I don't think it's not a good thing to say. It's
I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think it is either. But I think for some people, it's got. I don't know what the associations are, but not great. But I am an introvert, and I think, but I can function extroverted. So maybe ambivert. I've never even heard the term. But then again, I didn't know that my foot was as long as my.
So you have to come out of your little cavern to learn things.
I do have to come out. That's right.
Today's edition
Crawl
of
down.
Things Gary learned is getting larger and larger.
Right, that's right. But no, so I would say I'm truly an introvert, but because life requires you, right, to do things, and I enjoy it actually, but it does seem not consistent. But it does drain me, so that if I'm, doing whatever, I want to not do that for a while.
Well, introverts have a bad rap, but it's not fair because we introverts should be able to be one if we want to be one, or we are what we are, and we can't help it.
I think it's just, some kind of misconception. So some people have this wrong assumption that introverts are like sociophobic, but it's
or
not
necessarily
true.
depressed or
But that's absolutely not true. But I have also noticed that the world is becoming easier for introverts. You know how earlier, for example, you had to deal with every single problem by talking to people. You had to call, you had to go and talk to people. Now you can avoid this contact, now thanks to technology.
I love it so much.
I know. I mean, I'm not an introvert. I'm a rather extroverted person. But even whenever I have an opportunity not to talk to people, when dealing with a problem, I'm going to do that. Online, when you order things, like order a pizza, you don't even have to talk to people anymore. You just do everything online. You don't get a call. I love it. It's just so great.
So I can relate, yeah. And I think the other idea is that dealing with the problem, if we talk about the problems, it's it's distant, So you can put it off, put it away, for just a little. Your phone probably, maybe your computer, you can turn it off, So the problem is being decided there. So somehow. And you state a problem, and you know that it's gonna be reacted somehow someday. So, okay, I done everything. So I'm
you
waiting.
Can leave it, right?
Yeah,
you can
I'm waiting
deal
for
with
the
it,
result.
leave it, walk away. Yeah.
I love it, actually, really.
All right. So, Gary, you're an introvert. How else would you describe yourself?
Oh,
wow.
Well. So, right. Well, I would say some things like methodical.
That's
Is that a character?
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful trait, to be methodical.
Well, thank you, Barbara.
Impressed.
Right. Yes, okay. I'm gonna
Okay,
write-
what does that mean? I mean, how does that...
Well, it means that, let's say you have to deal with something, right? Whatever it is, some kind of a little problem or a challenge, as they say. You can kind of try to approach the problem and figure out how to go about it, and first thing to do, and then another thing to do, and then persistent. I would say I'm pretty persistent.
But would you take too long?
Yes, I would say I do. The other part, the downside of it, there is a negative, is that it's a bad combination. I'm a little bit, not a little bit, but probably a lot indecisive and kind of weak. Just in general, I would say.
But you can see two sides of things. That's the positive. If you're indecisive,
Yeah, I can
doesn't
definitely
that
see
mean
two sides of things.
you'd be a good debater?
It's supposed to be sort of a good thing also, right? Yes, that I can almost always, or a lot of times anyway, see both sides, which doesn't make it easy to decide between them, right? Because you can really understand the other point of view, and and so it makes it a little more complicated. If you only see one side of it, which I think more impulsive people might be, right? They just see it one way and they act on that, and it's all sort of in one motion. And if you divide it up and say, well, what is this? And, is there another way? And then it gets more complicated because you can see some nuance. Right?
Okay, so with this, I see it two ways. You either have to hire a decider for you, so they'll just decide it.
Hire a decider.
Or
right.
Or
.ru. Решитель, a decider.
you've got to listen to your gut, because you can have all sorts of things racking around
you
in your
finally
brain.
do. You finally
but
do.
then what does your gut say?
Well, and on some level, you finally do, because you do have to make a decision, and it finally probably comes to your gut, out of your gut, more than out of your thinking, right? But getting there, right, can take too long.
So you say that you see both sides of,
Often, yes.
So does that mean that you tend to be more open-minded than other people because of that? Like you try to understand the other side?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I would say.
Well, speaking of, character traits, I actually have a question. So sometimes I hear people describe themselves as ambitious. Now, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, being ambitious?
It depends on if you're a woman or a man.
Oh, wow. Okay. In what
Definitely.
way?
Well, we women shouldn't be ambitious. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about old-fashioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it's the man who is ambitious. He's going out. He's getting it. And we're supposed to be the homemaker. And I say this like you're not around people like that, but there's a whole chunk of American society that still believes that.
Yeah, I'm not around people.
Yeah, yeah, your expression.
You can see by my face.
Yeah,
You're like, women can't be ambitious. Says who? Okay, what do you guys think? Is it a good thing or a bad thing to be ambitious?
Well, I would, that's one of those qualities that is so far from me, right? I am a non-ambitious person. I mean, which is maybe that's a character defect. But whatever it is that makes somebody ambitious as such, I don't have any of that. I have like zero, which is bad.
It could be negative, for instance, if someone does want to get things done and another person doesn't want to see them get those things done, they could say, oh, he's very ambitious. And it's very negative.
I think ambitious...
I don't think of it as negative in people who are ambitious, right?
Well,
it's just very strange to me because it's not how I work.
I would say that ambitious can be very negative when people are ambitious and while trying to work on achieving their goal, they're ready to hurt other people. I think in this way, ambitious is a negative trait.
Right.
But if you are ambitious, you have your goals and you're ready to work hard
that's
to
good.
achieve them without, hurting other people, then it might be a positive one, depending on how
right.
you
Yeah.
act.
No, I think it's necessary, right? That's people that build things and do things, and that's takes ambition.
Yeah. So what about your family? So do you have the same kind of personality as your parents or your siblings? If you have siblings, Alyona, you have a lot to say on this, I guess.
There are three of us, and I think we're all different, but as the proverb says, birds of a feather flock together, right? So all our family, so I think we share one or two qualities.
like what?
Being open, I think, at least to each other, right? And I haven't noticed that much in many other families of my friends and maybe my colleagues who I interact with quite closely. But I think being open to the world, being open-minded as well, and stubborn. Stubborn. We're all stubborn.
I love it how you missed that when I asked you to describe yourself. You're like,
Just
It's a great combination, open-mindedness and stubbornness.
yeah.
Yeah, that's also kind of paradoxical.
Hell of a mixture. Yeah. So I think being stubborn, it's if we talk about zodiac signs and so on, so many of them and many of our family members so have that personal trait in their zodiacs, like Capricorns, Aries, Leos. So if we talk about that, I have no idea if the zodiac influences people as much as it says, but anyway, so we can't but notice that thing,
So, and that's you and your siblings. And what about you three and your parents?
I included my parents.
So
They're
you
both,
all share the same...
my both parents are Aries. The grandma that is with us still, so she is an Aries. So imagine how burning mixture we make it all together. 2 Leos, 3 Aries, and 1 Capricorn. Poor thing. Poor brother. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Barbara, do you have any siblings?
I do. We were born so far apart that we weren't really close. The first 2 or the first 3 kids were closer. And then the next kid was like 5 years later, and then I was 5 years later. So, yeah, we're very very different.
Okay. And what about you, your siblings, and your parents? Does anybody share, some kind of character trait?
I'm like my mother of how she would have liked to have been. She was a free thinker, and she had this free spirit about her, but she was unable to really put this into practice. And so I'm very much like how she would have liked to be. I think she'd be pretty proud of me.
Aw. All right. I'm looking at Gary.
Yeah, I am. I have some character traits that are from my parents. From my
example?
dad. Well, my dad was pretty methodical, and he was if the family had money, he might have become an architect. But the family didn't. They didn't have any money, so he had to quit college after a year, and so he didn't do that. But he went into business and accounting, and that's an exact kind of thing. And so he was very persistent and methodical, and also extremely even-tempered, which I basically am. Although I do have a little bit of my mother, who is not so even-tempered, but. So that's from my dad. And from my mother, she is quite, especially now that she's quite old, she's quite reclusive. not social, not genuinely not social. And she's fine. I mean, she lives by herself. She's almost 94 years old, and she lives by herself absolutely fine. And she has just enough contact. I call her twice a week, and she's got a neighbor that looks in and talks with her maybe for an hour a week, and that's plenty.
Oh, wow.
That's enough for her. Any more than that, and it just she can't handle, which is odd because the strange thing is my mother in high school was like super outgoing, into everything. She was a member of every club, and she was a majorette. You know what a majorette is? Majorette is a baton twirler. She takes a baton and she goes, she leads a marching band onto the field. And so she was a performer. Basically she was a kind of a performer. And it was a big high school, and it was during the war. And so it was a thing that you did. And she was into absolutely everything to the max, which I can't even imagine given her
Well, maybe
reclusive tendencies. And my grandmother was the same way. She was quite reclusive.
Maybe by a certain age, you just get tired of all the people and the mundane things that they want to talk about. You just leave me alone.
Maybe she did. Maybe it was. Yeah. Maybe it was just too much of that. And maybe her mother was pushing her. I don't know what the dynamics were there. She was.
Yeah, that's interesting, because sometimes we need to prove something to ourselves, and this is why we are ambitious or do something. And then once we've proved it to ourselves, it's like, well, what's the deal now?
Now I can be what I want to be. Now I can do what I want to do. Yeah, there might be different reasons. Yeah. Also, sometimes we might change a little bit. We change what we do. We change our occupation, our surrounding, people around us change, and that, can reflect on us, and our character as well.
Yeah. People do change, but that seems to me to be, I can't even understand it given, well, as soon as my parents went into business, then my mother had to be social with people that maybe she didn't want to be social with or didn't feel adequate, maybe, even though she was. Who's adequate? Who's not adequate, right?
Or who's adequate.
Yeah, or adequate, just any of that. And who's any of that? Yeah, but that somehow, I don't know. But anyway, so how it went from, it was not that many years. I don't know, something changed there. But anyway, I don't quite understand that. But the tendency to, like COVID, if I got to kind of change how I relate to people, the number of people, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I came to Russia, or I came to Novosibirsk anyway by myself. It's fine. It's fine. And I go about what I'm doing. It's fine. It's better with more people and all of that, but it's fine. I'm okay, and not everybody's okay in that.
I remember a book I read which was called "I'm Fine" and Other Lies.
Right. Yes. What are you trying to say?
Nothing.
I'm telling you.
Just remembered the name of the book.
I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you, it's all the truth.
Well, I completely relate to that. I think I like to. I don't know why, but I always want to prove to myself how strong I am, how courageous I am, that I can get things done. And then I'll go back into my little cavern and shake, like a little poodle or a chihuahua. And don't get the strength. Okay.
Well, chihuahuas, are 50% of anger. So, it's 50% fear and shaking.
Yeah,
50%
fear and anger. Yeah, and then
So-
you go out and go, okay, I've got to do this.
All right. It's always interesting to see how different people are from their parents, or how similar they are to their parents. Because sometimes there's absolutely nothing children and parents have in common, and sometimes it's the other way around. What does that depend on? Because I sometimes try to, look at my family, and let's say my sister is in a way like my mom in terms of character. You know, she's quite narrow-minded. She's very stubborn. God, she's very stubborn. But I, for example, am just like my dad, because my dad was, he was very sociable, but at the same time, quite reserved. So whatever he really thought, he kept to himself. So we share that. So, and then we have, like two pairs, my mom and my sister, and then me and my dad. So, because I'm not in any way like my mom, and my sister is in no way like my dad, like halvesies, really. So, and
that's interesting. We have a family of 6 now, yeah, and we share some character traits common to all of us, but everybody says that I'm like my mom.
Do you agree with that?
I don't know. People say it's like who judges better, yeah? The other person or you person? I don't know. But the idea is many friends of mine, they tell me that I look like my mom at least, yeah? Mm-hmm. That the voice is similar, that the maybe appearance, how tall we are, how slim and so on, yeah? And in some way, I think I think I'm more like my grandma from my father's side, his mother, being open, being sociable, and at the same time, being that opposite to a party animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just being so closed in your inner world, yeah, and when a lot of energy is necessary just to find another resource to.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about other people saying, "Oh, you're like your mother," or something, and you're saying, "No, I don't see it."
I don't see it, but if we talk about, the way the people behave, not about the character or maybe appearance, but sometimes the movements.
Right,
yes.
I might sneeze or cough, and I'll say, "That sounded just like my mom." Right. Have you ever done that?
I think yes.
Yeah.
I think yes, and maybe the laughter, maybe the way
some
we
little sound.
talk.
Right.
The way we talk and so on. Sometimes when we used to have a landline phone, sometimes people couldn't differentiate who was talking, me or my mom. Yeah.
Aww.
If we talk about the voice or
Right.
the
intonation,
or even,
the rhythm, and so on.
Handwriting. Sometimes I'll write a certain letter and go, "That looks like my mom's handwriting."
I tried when I was a kid. I tried to copy my mom's handwriting, but no.
But it might be just like
for
one
what
little.
reasons?
Oh yeah, that would be
Just to make
well, you're
fake
admired
signatures
her.
in the.
Right, yes. Please excuse Alyona from school today. She's very sick. Yes, right, yes.
So that kind of brings a question. So is our personality the result of nature or nurture? So is it genetics, or is it the upbringing? What do you think?
I think genetics influences that. If we talk about tempo, yeah. But the other things, it's more like nurture, yeah. It's bringing up or the society that's around you that influences and your development as a person, yeah. So
definitely the environment, because my mother was in the old-fashioned, and she had one foot in the old-fashioned world and one foot in the women's movement. And some things she would say to me, I go, "Oh, that is so old-fashioned. What a horrible message to give to your daughter." And I'd say nothing, but just some horrible sexist kind of thing about women. And so it's the environment that shapes you. And combination of those things. And sometimes also if you look at someone and you like to not be like them. And so they're a great example of what not to be like.
Yep. Agree. Gary, what do you think?
I'm thinking maybe like both. Right? Are you surprised? I can see both sides. I know you want me to come down on one or the other.
No, I don't.
No, oh, you don't. Okay, I can be in the middle on this one. All right. Yeah, I think it has. I mean, there's obviously something that nature gives you, right? That's your some basic characteristics there. And then there's a lot that's determined by your experience, right? And depending on how close, like as far as how one might resemble or not resemble your parents, maybe it depends on how much time you spend with them, right? And your attitude toward them and things like that. And I think it's just a general impress. I would never have thought when I was younger that I would end up, it's not the right word, but end up like my parents. But to some degree you do, right? But in my case, because I spent a lot of time, I worked with them and so forth, for years. And so that made more of an impression probably on me than if I'd had another group pressing something else on me, right? I think we are formed by people around us, right? Whether it's our parents or other group that we choose or that is kind of chosen for us where we end up. So I'd say both.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would just say that the extent to which, they determine our personality might be different. Because I can't deny the fact that our surrounding, and let's say people we spend time with affect the way we act and affect our personality. So, and then, you might be lucky to be surrounded by people who make you, improve, who make you a better person, or you might be unlucky, and as you, Barbara, have mentioned, sometimes there are people who you see and you realize you don't want to be like them. But sometimes if you are, well, I don't want to say weaker, but sometimes these people affect the way you behave and you change for the worse. Yeah. But it's been proved that genes do affect, and genetics, do affect what kind of personality we have. But it's not just one single gene, but rather a combination of those. And of course, they do not, determine what kind of personality we're going to have to the full. They might just slightly affect. And what's interesting, and I want to read this if you allow me, but there was a study in Minnesota which studied 350 pairs of twins between 1979 and 1999. And participants included both identical twins and fraternal twins. And in these 350 pairs, some of the twins were raised together, but some of the twins were raised apart. And what was interesting is that personalities of identical twins were similar, no matter if they were raised together or if they were raised apart. So which shows and which means that to some extent, there is a genetical element that, determines what kind of personality we are going to have. But I have not found any research on whether, that has been further researched. So that's kind of interesting to look up.
I think there's a lot of twin studies. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about twins. But I mean, what about not twins?
Yeah, well, twins take the genetic part. They make it something that you can compare because twins have the same genetic, identical twins do the same genetic makeup, right? And so you can say, okay, well, that's that. And then if they end up similar despite being in different environments, then that's pretty persuasive anyway. But it would be good to have it duplicated, and done many times over to prove that it's really the case. Yeah.
But I'm really curious about, not twins, at least, whether that will be researched or whether that is being researched. Yeah, but I haven't found anything yet. So maybe that's just...
I'm sure they're studying that. I'm sure they're studying it, but the literature, as they say, I don't know.
Okay, and what about... So Alyona has already mentioned this and touched upon this. So we've talked about genetical side, surrounding what about our zodiac sign and the day that we were, our birth date? Does that affect our personality? What do you think?
I don't know. When I was a kid, in my maybe 13 years old, yeah, I was really fascinated by all that, and I was really interested in Zodiac, in different horoscopes, the hand...
The palm reading?
Palm reading, right. And Pythagorean squares and so on, right? It was so exciting just to examine, to study, and to see if you have some character traits that are given in the descriptions of the zodiac signs. And sometimes it was really fun when you read the zodiac sign, for example, I don't know, Sagittarius, yeah? So you read it and you see, I have pretty much the same characteristics in my own.
But you're not a Sagittarius.
Of course, I'm a Leo, yeah, according to the...
Okay.
So, what's that? But sometimes it was fun to read. You see, the people who share that zodiac sign, yeah, and you see, for example, Napoleon, and you're like, oh, of course, when I grow up, I will become one of the greatest people of the world.
Well,
yeah,
it's a questionable desire, but okay.
Of course, yeah.
You and 1/12 of the human race. Right.
So
All these little Napoleons.
what zodiac sign are you? So, Alyona, you're a Leo,
I'm a Libra.
a Libra,
I'm a Scorpio.
and I'm an Aries. So, in what things have you heard about, like typical personality traits of your zodiac
Mine is
sign?
kind of unique because mine has the low base scorpion that will sting you if you say something or do something that we don't like. And then we have this high flying eagle symbol to symbolize our loftiness.
A Scorpio.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard actually that, wow, we actually are four of us represent the zodiac signs that usually people don't want to deal with for some.
Right.
Because,
oh,
people
you're
like,
a Scorpio.
I actually have heard girls saying like, oh, this is not going to work out, like in their relationship. I'm like, why? Well, he's a Libra or he's a Leo. Okay. So, Gary, what have you heard about Libras?
The only sign I know anything about is my sign, and what I know is minimal. So I was the opposite. I had no interest.
You
I had
just
zero
like your
interest.
sign because the Libra is the scales.
Yeah, no,
and
I know,
you
yeah,
can't
even-
decide certain things.
Yeah, no.
So
that's the
you're
problem
exactly
is
like a Libra.
Right, it sort of fits. That's the problem. Yeah, because I think it's got to be rubbish.
Because I heard,
But it's not.
there's like, a stereotype that all Leos are very vain and that all Aries are very stubborn. I'm not stubborn. I'm not conflicty. I'm not aggressive. Like, come on. And when I say that to people, who say like, oh, zodiac sign actually do determine what kind of personality you have. They're like, all the Aries are stubborn and conflicty and aggressive and moody. And I say, I'm none of those things. I hate conflict. I would do anything to avoid conflict. And they say, yeah, what's your birth date? I'm like, 16th of April. They're like, kind of close to the Taurus then. Maybe Taurus is affecting your zodiac sign. I'm like,
Right.
That's being on the cusp, on the cusp of that. That's like a week before, a week after or something.
yeah. I'm like, wait, but isn't Taurus also supposed to be like, very arrogant and stubborn?
Yeah, the stubborn bull.
So they're like, maybe it's your... Remember we talked about this like rising sign
Right.
and
Yes.
then moon sign and then whatever.
Gracious.
So you don't believe in any of this?
No, I don't.
I don't. I mean, it's
care about
interesting,
it.
because my everybody in my family is Libras also. So I'm like Libras all the way down. Except my mother is not
The
a
fifth
Libra. I don't
generation, fifth
think-
generation Libra.
Well, yeah, second generation. Just the immediate family. My
I've
parents and
seen a video on YouTube where several people were asked for it was some kind of an experiment. So, and they were asked to provide their birth date the city they were born in, and their favorite color. And then they were given results, about their personality. So, and then there were 4 people, and they were giving, this list of, in the description. And they would read that, and the camera would shoot them, and they were all in separate rooms. And they're like, oh, how would they? It's something I would not even admit to myself, but that's so true. So one girl said, it says your aspirations tend to be unrealistic, but you're afraid to admit it to yourself, and something like that. And she's like, and that line kind of struck me to my core. And, and then they were all asked, to come out of the rooms. And they're like, so what do you think? And people said, well, sometimes it was like, yeah, okay, kind of like that. And some phrases were just so true. I didn't even tell about it to anybody. And then the woman said, do you want to maybe, to quote something, to read something out loud? They're like, yes, there was this line. And the girl, for example, reads this line and the guys look at her like, I have the exact same phrase.
How funny.
So they were all
exactly
given the exact same description. And the woman, the psychologist and sociologist who was conducting this experiment said, we tend to believe these descriptions very often because they are very general.
Yes.
They're written in such a
right.
way that it can be applicable to absolutely anyone. I mean, who doesn't have aspirations that sometimes tend to be unrealistic?
Right.
I mean, no one's going to say, read the description, something like, well, you are rather smart, but you tend to put some effort, into it. And you tend to be sometimes, lazy sometimes. Nobody's going to say, oh, no, I'm dumb. Like, that is absolutely not true.
I'm dumb and I'm never lazy. This isn't me.
So, yeah, this is just very, very general. Yeah. I also have a friend who works in a newspaper and she just creates these horoscopes and everything.
Oh,
Just like,
geez.
I guess she has a list of phrases and
Yeah.
she puts them in different columns.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's,
All right. And what about,
I have unrealistic aspirations. Well, who has realistic aspirations?
right?
I aspire to work at McDonald's. Yes.
Right.
I hope I can make it before I go. Right, yes.
So, and do you think that,
No
let's
offense to our listeners who
work at McDonald's,
work at McDonald's. Yes, right.
whose aspiration was
Was to work at, especially, yes. My apologies. Yeah.
So, and do you think that, let's say our job can somehow, or well, a person's job can reflect their personality?
Sure.
In what way?
Well, I
Give an
think
example.
depending on how much freedom we have, now we have the luxury that we can choose work based on what we want to do. I mean, go back a couple of generations and it was like, well, what kind of work is there, right? What kind of job can you actually get? And so you didn't have the luxury, call it a luxury, of making these choices that now we can say, well, who am I? And based on that, I'm going to find a work that I'm going to enjoy. I mean, I don't know if my grandfathers enjoyed their work and found it fulfilling. They just found it necessary.
And that was
right?
farming, right?
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't farming, but it was.
That was your history.
No, city people. Yeah, my one grandfather was a tool and die maker, and we called it машиностроитель here.
Yeah, that reminds me of my poor mother. In the days of the Depression in the 30s, I guess it must be in the 1930s, having to get a job somehow and be independent in a world where the woman's aspiration is to find a great catch and get married because you're economically dependent on men. And so she was able to get some training go to a secretarial school. And so she got some skills. And she was able to do this throughout her whole life. Not that she wanted to be a secretary, but she was good, and she made a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now we can be expressive. We can, which is just it is a luxury compared to earlier generations. Yeah.
My grandma worked as a crane driver at a factory.
Are you serious?
Yes. Not a factory, at a plant, one of the plants in Novosibirsk, for 40 years, guys. For 40 years, she'd been like moving the
Yeah.
objects
We call them operators, crane operator.
operators,
Yeah.
right? So operator. And so for 40 years, she had day shifts, night shifts. So
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
that's incredible.
yeah. And I doubt that she really wanted to be a crane operator back then.
Do you know what she might have wanted to be?
She wanted to be a teacher. She wanted to be a teacher at
What made her be a crane operator then?
necessity, I think.
Was that during the war?
So no, it was later. It was late 50s, I think, already. And so the world needed constructors, the world needed engines, and she worked at the plant that provided, manufactured the engines, the big machines.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she had to be at the part of all that. And
Fantastic.
yeah, I think.
My grandmother was an exceptional woman. Through hard times, she actually built her own little cabin. And of course, my mother would live in this cabin because she was a little girl. She was a hairdresser. She ran a boarding house. She did so many different things. And it was kind of that free spirit, pioneer spirit kind of
Is
way.
this the grandmother the family that's in Mansfield, Ohio?
Right. Yes, that one. And she
Out on the front,
and
out
it
on the
wasn't-
frontier.
Yes, the frontier. And it wasn't necessarily just in Ohio. That was just one of her many places. It could be Tennessee, the Ozarks. I mean, wherever she was.
Ozark.
Yeah, where are the Ozarks?
Arkansas. Because I remember seeing Ozark Mountains, and that was in Arkansas.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, wow. Well, and since we're talking about personality, I can't but ask you, what do you think about all those personality tests? So the Myers-Briggs personality test, all the numerous ones that there are.
I like doing a few from time to time, just for fun. Just for fun to see how wrong they are or how right. Right. It's so just fascinating. But I don't believe them, of course. And, all those horoscopes or something, it's just entertaining, I think.
Well, but horoscopes, they tell you some things based solely on your birth date, whereas personality tests, they tell you some things based on your answers on certain questions.
When I used to work for one of the big companies, we had to pass such tests from time to time to see to make the climate of the group or the department better. Yeah. So I don't know how they actually.
I can just imagine, I'm sorry, we have to fire you. Oh, no, why? Well,
Yeah.
your personality type just does not
Yeah, number
fit.
7. You
Yeah,
didn't quite.
kind
but
of.
then I think that if you knew that you were being graded on your personality, you might fudge a little bit and say, what
Right.
answer would they like for me to give?
Sure. So there were answers given so you could see clearly the outcome, of some, and because of that, probably you would give the answer that the company needed, that the HR manager will see and evaluate the way that was necessary.
It sets goal. Do you set goals and
Yeah.
achieve them?
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
No,
from
I'm
1 to
completely
5.
indifferent to everything.
In fact, I just want to pick up my paycheck and not even come in.
Yeah, that's right.
if that's
right.
possible.
Yeah, just mail it to my home.
if you don't mind.
That's all right.
So in some ways, I think such personality or tests or the tests that evaluate your job experience and skills, sometimes they are quite clear to see.
Okay,
the
so
outcome.
one time I took a test and it came up that I should be a clerical worker with, and we're talking about typing. And I thought, okay, that's going to be, that's going to be a mess.
Have you ever heard about Myers-Briggs test?
No.
I Googled it before the podcast.
I might be wrong,
no.
but I think Gary has listened to a podcast about
I
it.
started to listen to it. I've heard the story before. I had heard the story before. It's kind of only had time to listen to like half of this series that was about the Myers-Briggs, which is really a big deal now. I mean, serious companies, I don't know what company you were working for, but they really use the test. I mean, they really use the test. And so it probably, if people would be honest, I mean,
Completely.
but like you say,
Yeah.
you can tell what companies want. You want self-starting people. You want, you know what people want. They can, team players. I mean, who wants some guy that's going to be, doing his own thing and can't work with anybody and doesn't take orders and can't not a listener. I mean, just antisocial.
Are you describing yourself, Gary?
I just went through my Myers-Briggs self-test that I took on the way over.
Well, for those who are,
Fail.
you can't fail a personality test.
Well, yeah, maybe most people can't, Gary, but
Yeah, the man failed the test. He broke the test. Yeah.
Well, for those who are not familiar with the Myers-Briggs test, the thing is that there are 4 categories that later make up a combination. So, and then these 4 categories are extroversion, introversion, so, which side you lean on, sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling, and then...
Sensing, intuition?
Yeah, sensing/intuition. So which side you lean on? Are you more of a sensible kind or the intuitive kind? Then there was...
Aren't those the same?
I don't think so. Like intuition, you trust your gut. Sensible, you trust your common sense.
Okay, all right. I don't.
Then there was
just
thinking/feeling and judging/perceiving. And then each of these categories has I think like 15, 20 questions or something like that. And then at the end you get a combination of letters. So for example, like ISTJ, for example. And then each of these 16 types has a certain name. For example, the protector or the architect, the mediator.
I heard that thing, but it's socionics. What's that English for?
Well,
Socionica,
that
yeah?
that would give some kind of a personality type, a name like. Well, I know in Russian, they give a name. They give names of certain.
Dostoevsky and other Yesenin type or so on. Yeah, I heard
What is
that.
interesting is that some people kind of take it to the extreme.
Yeah.
And at those times when I was on Tinder, there were some people who were like, "What type are you?" I have no clue. And then if you like take the test and you say, "Oh, I'm like ISTJ," they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not compatible with this kind.
Yeah.
So nothing's gonna work out. I'm sorry. Goodbye. Have a good life." What? Like,
I don't know how I could take this test because I think I would tend to put the answers of how I would like to be, the better version of myself.
there's always
the same
yes.
process,
Oh,
right?
I'd like to be like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be honest because you'd break the test, right? You'd fail the
So
test.
the other extreme is
Fail the
yes,
personality
you come out like as an
Man
angel
has no
or
personality.
something.
Right. You got a 0 score on the personality.
That is also true. In all these tests, we want to be a little bit, better than we really are, even if we're just doing it for
And
ourselves.
that would really lead to some bad results. Or, you know what I mean? It's too bad if people. It probably is useful. This podcast, I did listen to part of it, and it's really, really interesting. I think, but it was Myers and Briggs. I'm going to probably not get the information correct, even though I just listened to it. But it was this. Can I tell a story? Just take a second. This woman was, this was beginning of the 20th century, right? Not terribly long, well, 100 years ago now. But she was married to, she was a hyperachiever herself. She married an achiever husband. And, but because of the times, she couldn't really, she was limited to the marital roles, and it's going to be wife and mother. And so she ended up, had one child. And she, who was a daughter named, was Briggs, she ended up being Briggs. I think. And she put this woman that was a highly motivated woman, put herself entirely into raising her child, and who, just trying to perfect her behavior and her curiosity and her creativity. And she became this incredibly talented, multi-ability type person who is, I think, the Briggs, or one of the mother and the daughter. It's a mother-daughter pair. It's not psychologist, professional psychologist, but this mother poured herself into her daughter, who became extremely unusual, very accomplished in a lot of things, who then, the mother became fixated on how to influence the world through training, because she had been so successful in training, and she wrote a column that was syndicated, and so a lot of people were reading it. So she had a pretty large circle of influence for the time. And the daughter then, of course, left the nest and went to make her own life and all of this. And so the mother somehow made connection with Carl Jung, who is a very famous psychiatrist, psychologist of the Freud, same time period as Sigmund Freud. And she was completely fascinated with his views and became like this, let's say, an acolyte, or just, like almost a worshiper of Jung. And because he had come up with this theory of personality types. And basically, through the influence of Jung, she developed this typology, right? Which she then made into a system to try to, make her impact on the universe, on the world, And she ended up being the creator of the Myers-Briggs personality test. And the part that I got to listening to it was in the daughter's life. She went to college and she met a guy that she fell in love with, and she married. And it turned out that he was completely different from her. He was like a farm boy, and all of this kind of stuff. And she's this very hyper, person. I don't know what the exact differences were, but they had a lot of conflict because they were different on these four parameters, right? These four things that Katya just mentioned, right? I mean, they were different on three of them. They were like opposite on three of them.
It sounds like it's a really good guide. I mean, it could be like a basic guide.
Well, what it did was it saved her marriage. They were just in constant conflict because they were so different, basically. But because this whole system was able to explain that, okay, well, this is just, how a person of this kind of temperament or views, how they see the world, and here's how you see it, and that they managed to, they were married for 60 years or whatever. And
I think that shows the difference between generations, or, the difference between the attitude to it, because they found out that they were different on 3 out of 4 categories, and yet they used that to understand the differences and to work this out. Whereas nowadays people just say, oh, you're too different. Oh, no. I don't want to deal with you. Which is a totally different approach, and probably not even a correct one.
Yeah, well, this was the old school, right? That they fell in love, they got married, and, Mama, who was this high-powered woman who had raised the daughter to be this super child, and now she's disappointing Mama, but now, big time. And
they both wanted to work on their marriage. They both wanted to do that.
That was a generation where that's
what you're saying. Because a lot of times we're thinking, well, we don't want to waste our time. You're too different. Let me just, move on.
Right, but it was already kind of too late. At that point, they would consider it, and the time was such that you would try to work it out, and they did. And they apparently they did, because she was now, I think, 79 years old, and they'd been married for 60 years. And
It's like those circles that are put together and part of the circle shares the part of another circle. And so you find common ground if you can kind of let that person have their space and then you find some.
Right. If you can understand that the other person is just coming from this really different place.
And they
right,
probably
you can-
won't change because that's who they are.
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's their nature, right?
I actually have a question, which is going to be my last question. But you said, and they probably won't change. So does that mean that we can never change our personality? Or can we?
I think we can. I think we can work on it with the things that we want to change.
That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
no, I think you can change anything you want to change, and I'll agree but you have to really, really want to change them, right?
It takes a lot of effort, but it is possible. Most of things can be changed. Yes.
So we unanimously agreed that we can change our personality
Yeah.
only if we want to.
Yeah.
But nobody can change anybody without, their consent in this case. Yeah. All right. Oh, that has been very, very interesting. Now I really want to read a little bit more into you should send the link to that podcast.
I will.
Actually,
Yeah, it's called so.
That sounds interesting.
I should maybe mention it, or you can put it in the notes to the thing.
You could just leave a comment, but okay.
Okay. Yeah.
You just resisted, like, Gary, you can leave a comment. No,
That's how he is, and he'll never change.
That's right.
because he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to change. No.
All right. So, and what about you, dear listeners? What do you think about personality tests, zodiac signs, and all that? Feel free to, send your comments in our VK group under the podcast. We are always there to chat with you. All right, so that was the Big Apple School podcast, and today we discussed personality traits. Thank you for listening, and remember, if you struggle to understand our conversation, you're always welcome to our website, which is bigappleschool.com/podcast, where you can find full scripts of each episode. And you can read the script and listen to the podcast, and that's just amazing. And also, you can check out the website itself, which is bigappleschool.com, because you can find a lot of interesting stuff of the articles, videos, pictures, you name it. And if you want to get even more content which will help you learn English, you can always follow us on the social media such as Instagram, VK, YouTube, Telegram, and so on. Just search our name, which is again Big Apple School. So that was Katja, and my guests for today were
Gary.
Alyona.
And Varia.
Stay tuned, and we'll see you around.